Okay, let's go to unfinished business. Discuss and or approve series 100, 200, 300 board policies. Need a motion to do that. You move. All right.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve those board policies. Now, any discussion? If there's anybody out there who would like to address the board on this matter, you may do so by being recognized. We're going to ask you to stand, identify yourself, make your statement, be sure that you stay on the subject of this policy.
This is the policy that's possibly...
I ask you to stand.
This is the policy that...
Who are you?
Stephanie Crowd. So what you're proposing now is to approve the policy that would not allow administrators to coach. That's what you're moving forward on?
Right.
Not necessarily coach, though.
It's not coach, no, it's direct activities.
Any other employment.
Meaning, examples of outside employment whatsoever, summer,
The answer is
anytime?
yes, the policy that's in question that you're here for has been moved to approve. So that's what you want to address.
Which means nothing we have said makes a difference.
There's no vote been taken in the end, it was just put in motion. So Robert's Rules of Order are that once it has to be a motion moved and seconded, so there can be discussion. So this
Okay.
is the time for the discussion.
Well, I guess I'll start. Excuse me. I'm Julie Kitt, Lake City. I guess I'm still bothered by the whole timeline, sir, with you, Mr. Feeney. You know, I read in the paper today, now you're saying that in September we're going to have projected 1,000 kids. I'm not quite sure where that number comes up at. And how it pertains to Mike is...
Now, just a minute.
Excuse me,
You're going to
how
have to
it
keep
pertains
Mike out
to
of
the
this.
policy.
This is not a personnel
I know,
matter.
excuse me, I should have said that. I guess I'm stumped over the number. First of all, it seems like you're always changing the story a little bit. You know, first you said you weren't ever sure when you knew Mike was coach. I mean, first you said you didn't know when you were hired, you didn't know when the fall meeting, you didn't know when basketball started, and it wasn't until after the two girls complained that you finally in December wanted to say something about the policy. You know, when I talked to one of the school board members last night, you know, they had said to me they're worried about what's going to come down the line. But then when you stated in the paper today, you know, 1,000 kids in September, I don't know where you think that our economy or people are going to rise and we're going to have 1,000 kids in September. I think that's a far stretch. And, you know, up to this point, nobody in their administrative job has had problems. When I asked last night, there's been no problems with administrators doing outside jobs up to this December thing that you came up with. And so I still am having a hard time with, you know, it just seems like it's more and more stuff you're trying to put on the plate and trying to get around the fact of what we're really here trying to get out of this. I still feel like this is a witch hunt, and I still feel like there's never been any question as to him, to a administrator being able to do more than one job. Our administrators seem to have done their jobs and done them well, and so I'm still at a loss as to why we're now all of a sudden concerned with the future when the present is showing no pattern of having any kind of problem. Do you want me to keep standing, or can I sit down?
Oh, you may sit down. You're through with your statement.
May I respond briefly? The article in the paper yesterday, as I shared via email with someone else this afternoon that raised those same points. Bottom line, did I misspeak? Perhaps. Maybe the reporter got it right. I'm going to give the reporter the benefit of the doubt. Does it really matter that I didn't in the article say that, when you had asked the question, I believe, Ms. Mayo, earlier, that when I found out was at least before school, does that really matter? It's an oversight, a misspeak, whatever you want to call it, but does it matter? that a big issue? And as far as the 1,000 students, our enrollment last year in ESAC was somewhere around 972 students or whatever. That's where the 1,000 round off comes to. The other thing that was wrong in that article that you're referring to, and again, I'll accept that I must have misspoke. What I have said any number of times is that we're no longer a small school. 1,000 students, 80 faculty, that whole thing. But what it did was it got put in the future tense, we will be. And if you go back and change the present tense to the present tense, it's exactly what I've said before. So the article is what it is, nothing really changed. As far as the idea that this, I think you used the term witch hunt, was the term you used. That's never been the intent. My intent in this is the fact that we want the district to move and be as strong a district for our kids as it can be. And that comes from leadership. I've been very careful that not to be critical, or at least trying to be, not to be critical of anyone. It's a vision that solid leadership in all areas will help our district move forward. Some of what you're asking for is really asking for a public evaluation of an employee, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not. That's wrong, and I'm not going to do that.
It's against the law.
And so for specific reasons, the timing I've acknowledged was bad, and I understand where some of this comes from. I do. I really, really, truly do. But the reality, as I've said any number of times, is that this was a discussion that was going to take place regardless, because I think it's the right thing to do. And as long as I have this floor, I'm just going to make a short little thing. Unlike last month where I had a prepared statement. Nothing prepared. This is just talking from what's in my head and my heart. I believe the recommended policy is going to be in the best interest of the district. I think in the long term it's going to help kids because we're going to grow and we're going to be a better district than we are today. That's my belief. You can believe that, you can agree with it. I'm good with open dialogue that talks about it, but that's my belief structure. Common sense tells me that if we focus our energies in one area, we're going to see improvement. It's really a pretty simple argument. And every reason that I gave last month, I believe totally. I totally believe that that's the right thing. My discussion to the board is really pretty straightforward. It's that I believe it's in the best interest of kids. If you don't believe that, that's okay. And to board members, if you don't believe that this recommendation is in the best interest of kids, vote no. Absolutely vote no. That's what my argument's built on. And I have to say that, you know, over the course of the past month, I mean, obviously this has been an emotional issue for a lot of people. A lot of things have been said, a lot of things have been insinuated, and there's a lot of information or partial information out there, and I understand that, I do. The reality is that you have to look at yourself in the mirror if you're doing what you think is in the best interest and the right thing. And I look in the mirror and I believe this is the best thing for the district. Others disagree with me and I'm okay with that. The board members, you have to decide whether you believe that this is in the best interest of kids. My belief structure is I don't want to get into a dialogue with people that have, I understand, I really do. Everything that you have said any number of times, I understand.
Okay. Well, I again just want to say, you know, I'm a mother of 6, and these are my children we're talking about here that administrators are going to be benefiting my children. And I, you know, I'm not the only mother here, but, you know, I wish, and I'm going to just be honest because I don't know how else to be, but you know, when I was here at the last board meeting, body language said a whole lot to me last week that everybody had already made up their minds. But I still called board members because I want you to listen to me because I'm a voter here. I'm a parent, and I'm supporting this school. And after I talked to him last night, I totally felt defeated. I really felt defeated last night. And I thought, why should I keep continuing to come to the meetings? Because I don't feel like I'm being listened to. They're my kids. I don't think there's any problem. They had a thing that in the paper saying Sac City's resident number went down this year, so I don't see how we're going to keep going up in the school district, number one. And two, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. I just want to again say, these are my kids. Please listen to me too. That's what we're all here. We're voters here too, and your mind should also include us. And I don't want to be defeated, and I'm not going to go away.
My name is Jenna Krause. I graduated in 2006. Mr. Feeney, you said leadership multiple times in the statement you just gave, and I know you prefer this to be not directed towards Mr. Fisher exactly, but I can't do that because it's directly affecting him. And I'm a very strong leader. I believe that I am, and he taught me that. He made me the leader that I am. And taking that away from the future girls, from the current girls, that's a travesty to me. So that's what I have to say about leadership. Also, you mentioned the future and us growing, and I've been in schools, student teaching and subbing, where there's 1,000 kids in a junior high. There's probably no way the administrators could coach that. But that's not here, and why can't we address that when we have those numbers? Why can't we grandfather Mr. Fisher into this? Because like she said, it's about the present, and the present is, there's high performance and there's success. So I just don't understand why there can't be some sort of change or negotiation to that. If you really want what's best for your students, it's to not make this decision, not make this vote. To vote against this. Because you're going to, like I said, deprive young girls, young women of those experiences that I had. And please take that into consideration. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that also. My name is Casey Bennett, or disregarding Mr. Fisher completely.
Let's not discuss Mr. Fisher.
I said disregarding him completely. My definition of a good leader is someone that can do multiple things at one time and take on any challenge. That's what a leader does. Whether it's growing numbers in the school or whatever, that's the definition of a leader to me. And again, I think people just want to know about the timing. Why now? He's been the principal, he's been the coach, he's been doing this for years, so I think people just want to know.
See, you keep referring to he now. We all know who he is.
All three of them are.
Can I speak to this a second? I talked to legal counsel yesterday, and they said that I would need to request a closed session if I felt like I wanted a closed session. I was the one that needed to request that. I am not requesting that, so I'll clear that up for you. You can say whatever you want about me now.
I'm Natalie Bullock, and just for respect purposes, I'd appreciate if you guys were doodling and if you'd make eye contact with us as we speak.
Sharon Krause, second grade teacher here in the district, also JV basketball coach. I think there isn't a person in here who doesn't have the best interest of kids at heart. And with that being said, I may say something a little later, but the only thing I want to say about that is, a saying comes to my mind. Since we all do have the kids' best interests at heart, all kids, here's the saying that comes to my mind: if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Stephanie Moore from Sac City. I have been in the school system. I've lived here my entire life. And I'm just trying to figure out, does anybody have any statistics on, academic excellence in the school in the last 5 years? Have we declined somehow where there's a problem? Or are we going up? Where are we academically as a school?
Well, I can address basic skills this year. They were awesome. Very, very good. Which comes to only when you have support from your administrators and your teachers. Support with many meetings, many visitations, many checkings. So they were awesome this year, and I just like everybody to know that.
And that's K-6?
in both buildings.
And that's K-6. How about middle school and high school if we're addressing all administrators? How were their test scores in the last couple of years? Have they went up, have they declined?
I don't know that we're here to
Well, it's based on,
evaluate the instructional program, but it has been strong, and our students have tested well in the last couple of years, and that's due to a number of factors. And due to some of the people sitting here who are in those classrooms.
okay,
So,
so,
you know, I don't think that you can point a finger at anybody there and say that they are or are not the cause for something like this.
no, I was just, I was just asking, you know, if we're worried about, you know, certain administrators being able to lead the entire school, you know, their K-6, whether it be middle school, whether it be high school, if we're worried about them being able to lead the same amount of kids or add 25 kids to their workload and still be able to coach, whether it's volunteer coach, whether it's a paid salary. You know, I'm just wondering if it's gone up in the past few years or if it's gone down, because that would directly affect the administrators doing in-services, doing their own, you know, professional development. Being a teacher myself, I know, you know, professional development a bit.
I've spent a little time in education myself. I was a teacher for 7 years. I was a high school principal for 10 years. I've sat on school boards for 15 years. So if we're talking about experience, I've had a little experience in education. And you don't do those things unless you like kids, unless you want the best for kids.
The strong
And
adult
I don't
starts
think
with
that-
administrators.
I don't think that we're, you know, you ask what we're afraid of. We're not afraid of anything. We're trying to, pardon me?
I didn't ask if anybody was afraid of anything. I was just asking how the academic scores, if they've declined, if they went up. You know, the better teachers are hired by good administration. And, you know, administration's the one that sets all the professional development and all those things. And if we're only going to, if we have 975 kids now, if we're only going to increase by 25, you know, I was just saying, are we having a decline in academics? You know, is that been a problem, or, you know, has it went up? I was just trying to see, you know, on the academic side if that's been a problem.
I don't think that it has been a problem.
Okay.
I don't think there's been any decline in academics, and I don't expect there to be a decline in academics. I think that for the last, well, as long as we've been whole grade sharing, we've been setting a firm foundation for a strong academic program. That is number one, is the academic program. Now, that's the purpose of this policy as I see it. We want to create a situation where the administrator is responsible for one thing, the academic program of the school, to administer that part of the program. Somebody, I've had 1,000 emails, some very positive, some very negative, some pretty nice, others pretty nasty. Nonetheless, you know, somebody asked, you know, if maybe we shouldn't sit on the Board of Education because that takes away from how we do our jobs. And then I say, no, but I don't think that that's really the case. It is the case. I spend a lot of time on school board business. It does take away from how I do my job. Somebody has to cover for me. So I do know that, yeah, I can multitask, but when I'm doing those two things, you bet. My family suffers a little, my job suffers quite a little on given days. You know, as a band director, if I'm the principal, I've got a concert that night, or I've got a contest coming, I'm going to be thinking a lot about these kids and ensembles and things like that. When I've got a school board meeting coming up, you bet, I spend a lot of time on that in a few days prior to that.
No, but you just said that there has been no problem. So if our academic is either staying the same or going up, You're not giving us a reason why it needs to change. He has done a great job here for the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden, you want it to change. There's not one reason you've given us as to why it needs to change. First, you try to say that our numbers are going to go up. We all know our numbers are not going to go up. Number two, there's just no reason for it. I want a reason. I want a reason.
Well, I think we gave you.
No, you haven't. You just said there's no problems.
Who here thinks he's given a reason?
I don't think that anybody said there's no problem. I said the academic program is strong.
Okay, so then why are we trying to change this?
But you certainly heard of being proactive, and that's what we're trying to do. And so that's the reason for the policy as I see it.
I called 14 schools. Out of those 14 schools in our 2A district, 10 have administrators being the principal and also a coach. And yet you're still sitting here saying he can't do both and do them well. And yet there's nothing that you have said up to the last couple years that he has not done
Last
well.
meeting.
Nobody has said
He
that.
said that last
We're just
meeting.
saying that we're creating a situation.
But there is no need for a situation that's not even here upon us.
And you have the right to your opinion about
But
this
none
matter.
of you guys are listening to us. You have already made your decisions. I
I've been
can see it on
listening
your
to you for a
faces.
month.
I can promise you
so
I haven't made my
discouraging.
decision yet, so
Thank you.
don't
Thank you.
sit back and say that I have.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Gene Riley, and this isn't just happening. 2 years ago, I was assistant girls basketball coach, and I had a special hearing because the school board wanted to move me to the boys basketball program. And the school board members, which 2 of them are still up there, and we had a different superintendent at the time, but they all told me that the reason I was being moved over and they weren't going to have an administrator coach is because they didn't think administrators should coach, and that was 3 years ago. So it's not just happening. Chuck told me, Lisa told me, and Barb Krudoff told me that they did not want their administrators to coach, and that's one of the reasons I was moved from girls to boys. So it's not just happening.
So is there a difference from girls to boys?
I've repeatedly said that for
That-
years. We had-
That wasn't brought up to anybody in the public, as far as I know. I never saw anything, read anything, and maybe, excuse me, President, maybe that's my fault as a parent for not being more involved. But, you can't bring that up now, 3 years later.
But you just, no,
3 years
Chuck,
later?
Chuck, I'm going to be asking you.
Yeah, okay.
It was on the front page of the Lakeview Resort, and it was also in the Sac Sun. But you're the one that said that this just came up. It didn't just come up. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, we're not going to, we're getting into just a bantering back and forth here. Unless somebody's got a new perspective to add, we've heard the others 2 or 3 times.
Okay, I'm Natalie Bullock. First of all, you said only 28 students. Second of all, you said for your personal, you didn't have enough time. That's you personally. Other people can manage without something giving, okay? I've had the opportunity to have the administrator as a teacher, as a coach for 4 years, and now I've coached against him for 2 years. You mentioned
Now we're just listening to an argument about,
administrator. I've had an administrator as a coach, and now I've coached against an administrator that's also a coach. Okay? You've talked about leadership numerous times. Okay? I have learned more from that man on a basketball court than I ever have anywhere in a classroom about life. And if you want to talk about somebody striving for perfection in their girls, in themselves, first and foremost, he would be the most likely person who would be able to do both tasks. He sets the bar so high, and yes, sometimes it's difficult for girls. But it's because he expects the best out of you, and that's what he gets.
when we came here tonight, we knew that no matter what decision we made, there'd be people who would be angry, there'd be people who would be happy. And that's just the way it is. Over the past several years, we've made lots of tough decisions relative to getting together as a single school. And there are going to be a lot more made. This is just one of those decisions along the way. We have to establish policies for the new school. And This is part of that procedure. So,
Sherry Crowd, second grade teacher again. You know, there's a bigger picture of all this. And the bigger picture is trust. And I can tell you that as teachers, we've lost a lot of trust. Not in our administrator in my building. That's not the trust I'm talking about. We've lost a lot of trust about our board members and how they represent us. And that's a sad part, because there is a big, trust issue right now going along. Because quite honestly, there are not just me. There are a lot of teachers and parents and community members that don't feel like the truth has been told here. Because we've lived it, we've been there every day, and this whole thing is a trust issue. And let me tell you, I'm a teacher in the building, I hear about it, and the trust is way down. So no matter what happens today, that issue needs to be addressed, because it's a sad, sad thing when your teachers and your parents and your community members do not trust the board, do not trust certain administrators. It's a sad thing. And that's a big picture here, and that's really
I'm sure
sad.
You represent a segment of the community. The people who feel the other way, they're not going to be here, and they're not. If they are here, they're going to listen. They're not going to say anything, but they're out there too, because they talk to us. So, we're the ones that have to make the decision. And unless any of the members of the board are not ready, we've got a motion on the floor. I'm ready to take a vote.
Is there any way of just talking about grandfathering him in or putting the
No,
table
we're
in
not.
the side?
No, you're out of order. We're not talking about a personnel matter at this point. You're out of order.
I have something to
At this
say.
point, we're going to,
Can I say something?
We're not done.
We're not done. Casey Partridge. If you look, like, half of our team is here, and it just proves to you what really is happening to our team, which is what it should be about. If you're saying it's about the kids and about us, then I don't understand why you're completely separating our team. We can't go a day without hearing bickering back and forth in the hallway. I know I lost two of my best friends because of this whole entire thing, and I didn't hear talk about it all the time that, oh, I'm not going out next year, Mr. Fisher's the coach. And that just hurts because
see there, Casey, you can't.
he said we could. He said we could.
He can say what he wants to about that. We set the
My-
parameters for the board.
The administrator. My point being is that all you're doing is tearing us apart. And I know we talked to Dr. Feeney at one point during the season, and it seemed that everything that we said to him just went in one ear and out the other ear. And when I look up to Mr. Fisher, I look up to him, if he can keep his cool through all this, when he sat us down and told us as a team about this, he was completely cool, and he said, I'll keep you informed about everything. And he wasn't mad, he wasn't upset. Well, obviously he was upset that he was going to lose something that he loved to do. But other than that, he's kept his cool during this whole entire thing. And I don't know how anybody can say that he can't handle it.
I have another question. Stephanie Moore. Are administrators allowed to volunteer at every single practice of every single sport for the rest of, say, I don't know, the next 15, 20 years? Are they allowed to help bale hay? Are they allowed to paint houses in the summer? Or do they have to ask for all that permission? We're getting into, you said it's not just,
Some pretty ridiculous stuff.
well, it's not just, let's use some flag football. And an administrator wants to help volunteer coach a flag football team.
That's voluntary work. We haven't
Okay,
said
let's use swim team for
anything about
example.
volunteerism.
Let's use swim team for example. Happens in the summertime, doesn't affect work. Is somebody allowed to, help coach swim team? Is somebody allowed to go into the dance studio and help coach their children in the dance studio? Those kinds of things.
All of those are individual situations. The board has a right to deal with individual situations. Most of them are not involving pay, and volunteerism is something that we can't really control.
And the policy actually says while under contract, so summertime, what you're talking about doesn't fit.
So in the summertime, any one of the three principals at any of the schools would be able to hold another position.
Yes.
Did they
Okay.
approve with their teaching, with their
Well,
administrative
Mr. Feeney
contract?
says their contract was up in the summertime, correct?
There's two, yeah.
Okay,
The simple answer is yes.
okay.
Natalie Bullock, what proof do you have that this is going to benefit the kids? Statistics, anything?
I don't think there's statistics. I mean, just to be blunt, and reading your faces, you already know. Take that back. I'll give you my honest answer. Statistics to support that, if they exist, I don't know what they would be. I mean, just to be blunt with you. Let me give, may I finish, please?
Well, I'm just wondering how much research you've done into this decision.
If you want numbers, not much. Okay? How's that for an honest answer?
That's disappointing.
Well, here's,
Blunt.
would it be okay if I finished the sentence? I apologize. The logic is very simple, and I've said it any number of times. And is there numbers to support it? No, there's an element of common sense in my estimation. And one is that if you are focused on one thing without being pulled from that, it avails itself to more time. It avails itself to developing relationships, further relationships that exist within the building. It avails itself because you're not splitting your focus, and that is just a common sense argument. Is there a number to support that? No. And if you're disappointed that I look for a number, it is a straightforward and reason for a focus on leading the building. That's what I'm after.
A number, I'm examples of other school districts. Anything?
Ask your question again.
It doesn't have to be numbers, just examples of other school districts that have had success with this.
Oh, I don't. You've done the research, and I believe, Mrs. Kitt, you called different schools. I didn't do that because, truthfully, I don't really care what the other schools are doing. There's 337 school districts in the state of Iowa.
And you didn't contact one of them?
Nope. Why would I? Because I told you before, I believe this to be the right thing for the reasons I said. And that's it.
If there were a volunteer coach, we were talking about volunteer coaches to come in, I've already stated that I am perfectly capable of taking practice at any time. You know, if you feel like I'm not
We're not
okay
talking
there.
about basketball.
Well, we are though, we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. Any person, any outside activity, if there was a volunteer who could step up, that's not even an option, it's just no. And have you given that any thought at all? As an option, as a viable
I
option?
don't even know what you're asking.
If a volunteer on these outside activities, a certified volunteer could help.
It'd be great if we had all certified volunteers, we didn't have to put out the money for coaches.
Okay, I just want to clear something up because I'm a little confused. We have proof that this administrator has done a good job. We have records, basketball records. We have Iowa Test of Basic Skills from the last few years. We have proof that it's going well now, but we have no proof that it will go well if we change it. We have nothing to base that on. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's what you're saying?
Yes, but to paraphrase it, maybe I could ask a question that, accepting what you said, and thank you, you said it very articulately. Maybe the question is, what would we be able to do academically if that was our only focus?
Did you win awards this year?
It's more of a rhetorical question.
Or is K6?
Stephanie Kraft, if you're going to talk about focusing our issues or being on one thing, then explain to me how one building or the other is not suffering, that our administrator of the elementary is splitting his time between two buildings. I mean, isn't that fair to say that that job, one of them is going to suffer because he has to individually split his time?
The answer would be yes.
So then hire a second principal or close one of the buildings.
Casey Donovan.
It's nice to have all
I
the
think-
answers.
Well, just ask, I'll give them to you.
I think the point we're trying to make in general is that
Would you
kids,
allow her to be heard?
I think the point we're trying to make in general is I believe your educators, you would know if kids learn from example, then if their leaders are only focused on one thing and are only in one role, would that not teach children that they're only allowed to have one role as an adult?
I don't know how you can be a principal and only have one role.
Exactly. I think that's why we're out
You
there.
can't be a principal and have one role. You've got multi-roles. Well, I think we've heard it all several times. Unless there's an objection on the part of the board, we'll call for the vote, and we'll ask for a alphabetical roll call vote.
Should we vote on all the 100, 200, 300s other than 303.9 first?
No, let's take them all.
They're all in the motion.
Okay.
You ready, Chuck?
I'm ready.
Chuck?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Brent?
No.
Thank you.
Motion carries 4-1.